audio takes a minute. Okay, we're on whenever you're ready.
Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have everyone joining us tonight for the Pueblo School District 60 Community Forum for the planning and design of Centennial and East High Schools. I'm going to kick it off tonight, Amy Herdig-Smith, and we will go through the process. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Once again, we are doing this by technology. We wish we could see everybody's shiny faces, but we'll keep working through to keep on schedule with the high schools. So welcome. This is forum number 3 and DAG number 8. Your presenters tonight are Amy Urko from Brain Spaces, myself, Amy Herdig-Smith from HGF Architects, Eric Vogel from MOA Architecture. Jack Musso will be behind the scenes trying to answer people's questions, and Chaz Marquez from MOA. So this is the team that's working on the project right now. We have Pueblo School District 60 along with Centennial High School staff and East staff. We've been working with HGF, GE Johnson, MOA, and Brain Spaces. We're all working together, starting to design the project. Our agenda tonight will be setting the stage. We just met the project team, trying to go through to understand the process and where we are in the process. Project outline, we'll talk about project perimeters and scope of the project, just to remind us at the beginning of every presentation where those are. And for those that are new, we'd like them to know, what the outline is of perimeters, scope, and design approach. Then we will do facility planning and review the high school space program with Amy Urko and programming differences between the two high schools, such as the CTE program. And then we will go to campus design and show our progress on East and Centennial High School campuses and site layout that we've been working with the city with traffic, trying to figure out how circulation will work on the sites. And we've also been working very hard on floor plan design, going from concept to schematic. We're kind of in the middle of that right now, and we'll show you our progress on that. Eric Vogel will be taking us through that. And then building character development. Chaz is going to show you some ideas tonight on what we heard from last time, our polling from the last meeting, and then maybe some imagery of exterior design as we are heading into schematic design. And then finally, we will end with questions and answers session for everyone. So guidelines, we propose this meeting to provide information and respond to questions. We're trying to bring you the design and planning process to show the construction of new East and Centennial High School to get community input along with our design advisory group, which is also on this group tonight. Today's meeting will focus on programming, site plan, floor plan, and exterior design character of two high schools. That's where we're at, the process. Public comment guidelines. We welcome your questions. They are directly related to the topic tonight that we are discussing. When submitting your questions, please include your name so we can answer those appropriately. And please keep in mind that your questions and responses will be available for public viewing. So your questions and responses should not only be on the topic of discussion, but suitable for the audiences. That may include both children and adults. The facilitator may skip questions and comments that are unrelated to the topic of the meeting and are appropriate for K-12 students or are disruptive to the meeting. So let's keep good comments as we want to have a great community process here. Next slide, please. show personal conduct. We want to listen. We want to pay attention and actively listen to each other. Focus. We want to stay on topic with the agenda. Participate. Avoid disruptions. Be nice. Act professional. Be a model for others. Be considerate. No rude language, please. Support. Provide construction feedback. Be objective. Look beyond personal issues, agendas, or interest areas to the big picture. And value diversity. Recognize that we all have opinions, which I think makes great design as we all talk and discuss items together. This is a great opportunity. And be open-minded. You know, someone may not have quite the same opinions as you, but as we try to work through as a design team, we try to address everybody. Using the chat feature, make sure you log in as a guest on the right side to be able to send comments on Vimo. Please use that. We value your comments as we go through these presentations and try to listen to the community and the design advisory group. So we really think that's very much part of the process and want to hear what you think and if we're heading in the right direction, and what you think of the design as far as we have come in the schematic design process. Project perimeters. So the project perimeters on this project, as we've gone through before, but for those new, it's $152 million is our total project budget. That includes existing building demolition, soft costs, FF&E, construction, all the items that are required to do the projects of building the 2 new high schools. Opening schools in the fall of 2023 is the plan. 2 high schools are prototypes. They're the same size, same budget, same capacity. Similar spaces in both schools, but equipped for the needs of each campuses as they have those differing CTE programs. And 185,000 gross square feet per school is the maximum size we have given towards working at the budget we have right now. So we've been working through that with programming and trying to keep that target number of square footage. So that's what's included. So now I will turn it over to Amy Urko, and she'll tell you a little bit about the facility planning and programming that she has gone through in the process.
Hey, thanks, Amy. This is Amy. So we've been working through with user groups, focus groups from both high schools as well as district leadership to address and fine tune the space program for the buildings. And so there, of course, the prototype approach means that both schools will be essentially identical, the very minimal modifications to each site in terms of their program, their space program. There may be other components that would be unique to each school that have to do with design and image and color and so forth. As well as the career and technical education programs are different at both schools. So we have been working with the schools individually for those specific programs. So they're very tailored. Again, IB will still be hosted at East. However, the accommodations for IB are embedded in the program of the prototype. So if it were to be that IB would spread more widely, that would be possible because of the prototype approach. The existing buildings, of course, will be demolished upon the completion of the new building construction. So I'm not exactly sure what that has to do with the prototype, but it's in there as a bullet point. So let's go to the next. Project scope. So when we are right sizing any school facility, we have sort of guidelines that we need to address and make sure that the square footage aligns with. And so, of course, the capacity, the student capacity is one of those key parameters. So As you all know, our design capacity for the school is 1,100 students, which can expand to 1,200. So all of the shared areas like cafeteria and commons and things that support the educational program are sized for that ultimate enrollment capacity of 1,200 students. In addition to accommodating the sheer capacity numbers, we also are including a full-size competition gym. As we just mentioned, there will be different but separate but equal CTE programs at both buildings. And we are including, by popular demand, a performance venue, an auditorium, as well as the production kitchen and auxiliary gym, wrestling room, and fitness areas of the athletic complex. So we are feeling really proud that this team was able to work together to get all of the things that we heard from you guys during our first meeting that were so important to you, to have those elements be part of the project. In summary, and we've gone through the space program or program of space needs in detail previously. So this, we'd like to get on to the fun stuff, which is the design part. So I'll just briefly show you the summary of the square footages that we have. And as you can see, they're categorized by the instructional core, instructional activities, student community life and dining and kitchen and so forth, the offices and support, including the health center and student services, counseling and such, and then building facility components like custodial and maintenance. So that the total is at 137,500 square feet net usable area. That's essentially calculating usable spaces from the paint in. And then in order to accommodate other spaces like the space that a wall takes up, spaces like mechanical and electrical spaces, hallways, stairways, restrooms, and all, they're included in the grossing factor or the gross building area, which is set at 185,000 square feet each. So we have updated this since 4/22, so the date is a little off on there, but we have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb with district leadership, with both school principals, with their staffs, and with many teachers and other staff from the buildings, and are quite confident that we have not missed anything because we've had so many sets of eyes on this. And I think what I'll do is let this move on to the design part, where you can see how these square footages get laid out in the in progress campus designs.
Thanks, Amy. On to the fun stuff. Okay, so we're going to start with the site plan. Sorry, this is Eric Vogel with MOA. We'll start with Centennial because it's a little bit more simple than the east solution that we're proposing. This should look fairly similar to what we showed you guys about a month ago. We have started to move the fields around a little bit, and we were originally trying to keep some existing parking, which we're not going to do that. That was just was too tight on this site. We weren't able to get all the fields and parking that we needed to accommodate on this site to keep that parking. But let me walk you through a little bit on what we've got. Our building is essentially tucked up into that northwest corner, kind of back behind the existing tennis courts, which we're going to try and keep. And what that allows for is a softball field and baseball field, and 2 access points all off of Mountain View off to the south. Previously, we were keeping a entry drive off of Baltimore, but we're losing that. We're going to put the soccer field here. We're maintaining the existing track and field location up on the hill, and then we'll have our practice football field oriented along with the building on the north part of the site, along with our distance and shot put. Of course, we're trying to maintain room for future expansion. So you'll notice that on these wings. The main entrance to the school, we'll see this all in 3D, is open to that main drive. So as you pull up, you should very well know where the entrance to the school is. And then off to the back, we have our CTE yard, our service and loading drive, and about 100 stall staff parking lot off the back. So now we take this another step, and our landscape architect starts to show how circulation can flow through the site and different types of surfaces, what those could be, versus native grasses versus sod, where we would have detention and landscape areas. We're trying to resurface the basketball court and keep existing tennis courts, like I said. Our main entry plaza, which links to the building to our outdoor dining off to the back of the building. And this dashed line should show kind of where we're thinking of how we're going to circulate through the site. I'm going to jump over to east, which is a little bit of a departure from what we showed you about a month ago. If you remember, our building was a little further west in this corner, and we were stepping down the hill with our auditorium and gymnasium. And through the last design advisory group process, they wanted us to explore giving the building a little bit more buffer from the street, sliding it down the hill a little bit more. It creates a little bit of complication in the building, but I think it actually creates a nice solution for how this building steps down the hill and fits into that hill. We have to step the building either way because of all the different plateaus that we're dealing with. So now we're stepping it on this upper plateau and a main level versus what we were previously. We still have our main parking field south of the main entrance, and then we'll have faculty and our sped drop off on that upper plateau. And you'll get to see that in the plan here in a little bit. As far as the field locations go, talking through it with the district, we're going to put the new track and field down here with close proximity to a new shot put in biscuit. Our softball and baseball fields will be in that northeast corner, and that allows our practice football field to be left alone right there on that plateau, and then our soccer field will go where the just existing track and field are right now. We have to get service and access to the back of the building in our fire lane, so we'll actually have to get a service fire lane drive around to the back to service the kitchen and dining, but we need that for fire anyway, so we're going to dual purpose that. And then we'll have our CTE and our culinary arts outdoor dining kind of on that upper plateau with their own little parking up here. So what that looks like as far as hardscape and landscape and native seed versus sod and circulation through the site. This is the first pass of that. So to see how we're dealing with that main front entry and trying to soften those edges and this berm up into the upper tier. We'll have a great connection out of the athletics down to the track and field outside those locker rooms, as well as to the north. I'm going to jump back into the plan. This is where we started with our conceptual, what we call an adjacency diagram. These are just blocks of spaces that kind of help us organize the building. And the main idea of this was to orient everything kind of around a central student union, central dining that becomes kind of the heart of the school. That's where we kind of started. And then last time you saw this plan diagram, which was still very preliminary. It's essentially a arrangement of blocks, nothing really there, not a lot of detail, but that becomes the seed for what we're going to start to look at as far as a real floor plan and something that can be used for takeoff and actually building. We're going to start with Centennial because East has got a little bit of gymnastics to go through to step down that site a little differently. So I'm going to walk you through. Please note that these are still very preliminary. We haven't had any user group meetings. We walked the district through, so they've seen these big moves. We're having meetings with the principals, but we haven't gotten to that fine level with the user groups. So this is really a snapshot in time. Things will still be moving and pushing and pulling. We're still dealing with our consultants and the spaces they need in the building, like as far as mechanical and electrical spaces. But you can see there will be a lot more detail than there was a month ago. Okay. So I'm going to start right at that main entrance. We have our main entry kind of flanked by admin and our community health space. So our main entry plaza, you'll come in. If you're going to the community health, you'll have your own little waiting vestibule area right there, so you don't need to go into the school. Security, reception, all eyes on that front door. After hours, there will be a secure during off-loading hours, there will be a secure vestibule for visitors, so they have to be buzzed in. And then we have our entire admin suite, counseling, and our student services. And this is very much a work in progress, so don't look too closely at it. But what that does is that dumps you right into our special space, the heart of the school. Right now we've got our learning stairs leading you up to our student union and our library space, which I'll show you in a minute. And on Centennial, because of the step in that site, we actually go up a few feet, 4 to 5 feet, to get to our gymnasium and our auditorium theater. So we'll have our music spaces, our OCC space. And at the end of our main spine, we'll have our mini gym. Our main gymnasium, kind of off of that main dining common, so that can be used as pre-function space. And then this back hall will take you through to our locker room. So we'll have PE athletic lockers, our coaches' offices, showers, all those kind of things. Back on this corner, we have our fitness and our weight room. And then we have our aux gym tied to that main gymnasium next to it. And then gym storage for both. If we go the other way, I'll just walk you through the school. On this same main level, we'll pass through the admin area and underneath kind of our stairs. Up above this will be the library and student union, which we'll show you in a second. This will take us to our CTE and our learning labs. A little different than East, but essentially the same arrangement. And then as you come down here, we have our academic core. These are our 10 learning studio classrooms, our science and our flex lab, and our special education. We have that student hub right in the center of all of that, which I'll show you some pictures of what that potentially could be. And then what stacks right above that space is all this, and our art studio, and our learning media center. There's our learning stairs, our student union, all connecting down into one kind of heart of that school right here. So we think as you walk into the school, this will be a very powerful, special space, very impactful, very special to each school. Hopefully very active and very, very well used. And of course, back here we have all that stuff that nobody really cares about, kitchen and mechanical stuff. So that's Centennial. I'm going to walk you through East, which is just a little bit different. And I'll show you on 3D. But first, let's walk through it in 2 dimensions. So everything on this level is one level now. So we don't have to go up or down to get to our gymnasium and our auditorium, which is really nice. So as you come into our school, we still have our dining commons and our learning stair, and our mechanical and our kitchen and all the back of house stuff. You'll come down this corridor. You'll have an egress stair out and an elevator lift to get you to the learning commons. But primarily, you'll use this main feature stair which will now get you up to the first level of the academic core and the CTE. So now this level is tied together with the second level of the library media center. Like I said, this will make a little more sense in 3 dimensions, I think. And then we'll have a third level, which will stack directly above. So we're still dealing with the prototype. We're still trying to maintain as much of the same as we can. Unfortunately, on East, because of the building step, we need to figure out a different way to get up and break the building. The nice thing is we don't have to break it for gymnasium and theater. That can all be at one level. Before we look at the 3D stuff, I'm just going to walk you through just these are some of the pictures we had shown before, what those spaces could look like. Some of these you've seen on the tours. You know, that's the learning spare space. That secure entry vestibule, some student lounge space. What could that student hub be with glass looking around and soft, flexible learning space. Our faculty think tanks flanking both of that student union or student hub. Science classrooms, art classrooms. These are just to give you an idea of what these spaces could look like. The culinary arts shop. Of course, our athletics and our theater. Showing the partition that can close off just for the small theater audience, and then dividing that upper section into teaching spaces. Locker rooms using color, using branding, using your school identity and pride throughout all the athletics. And then our fitness room, kind of on that corner, to be just a wonderful space. Now I'm going to jump into looking at these in 3 dimensions. So this is the site that we're looking at for Centennial. You can kind of see these white dashed lines. Those are foot contours, and those are existing. What we're trying to do is work with the existing contours as much as we possibly can. As we throw in our block diagrams, this is that main level. There's the heart of the school right there. We have our classroom wings. We have our CTE, our athletics, and our gymnasium. And those actually, in our auditorium, and those step up a few feet. You can see on the site. And level 2 will just simply be a stacking of both the classrooms and the library and the student union. So that should all flow and function really great. On East, it's a little bit different. Like I said, here's the tiers we're trying to deal with. Our lower, our middle, and our upper tier. If we look at what that first floor does, kind of set into the hill here. As you come up this main stair, you'll get to that classroom wing. And then again, our level 3, that's above that.
Hey, Eric, we're still on
Yeah.
Centennial. So
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see if I can do that. Did that again. Okay, let's start that one again. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so these are our 3 tiers. As we put the building in on that main level, you can see how it tucks into the hill. You can see this grand stair will be how you get up to that second level, which is up on this plateau, which has CTE and our learning commons. And then that third level will stack above that. Let's pan around a little bit there, so you can see how it kind of steps into the hill. So we're trying to take advantage of the hill. I think it works well. I also think it's a nice differentiator between Centennial East. It's just another way for the buildings to look a little different and not feel prototypical. even though, from the air they will be. Okay. So Chaz, I'm going to turn it over to Chaz. Chaz is one of the designers working with us on the exterior character of the building, all the really fun stuff. Chaz, can you share your screen?
Yeah, I don't know if we wanted to quickly go through the polling images, but
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. I apologize. You got me. Let's start with where we ended last time on character, building character. One second. Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks, Chaz.
sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chaz Marcus. I wanted to walk through some of the polling results that we got from the last time the group met. It's really important to us to stay on track and make sure that we're meeting these comments and also addressing the polling images that seem to be favored and why they were favored. So I just kind of wanted to walk through that again and refresh everyone on where we ended, and then we'll look at the building exterior design, and hopefully we're aligned with some of those polling results. So as you'll see in the images, but we'll try to stay with this set of words here to describe some of the desires that we want out of the school, with modern and also traditional at the same time, non-traditional. So we're trying to use some more traditional materials, but using more modern forms with that and be a little bit more playful. So we went through the first set of images here. You had schools A and D. Based on the polling results, it was a pretty close one, but you can see that image B was the preferred one. And this image B was showing a heavily masonry type building, but it was a little bit more playful in how those volumes are relating to each other. You have kind of a hierarchy of spaces. You have some lower volumes with some higher volumes that really bring some attention to the buildings. And so I think hopefully we've addressed those types of issues. So here's another polling result. I think, again, hopefully we'll be in line with this. So this one was a little bit more heavy favored. Image A was using pretty simple forms, but in a little bit more modern way while sticking with more traditional materials. Whereas I think image B was maybe a little bit too modern. So we're trying to find that right balance. So this slide here, so you A, B, C, D, this was in relation to the entries. And it looks like in this one, I believe image D was heavily favored. So you have a large entry that really lets you know the entry point to the building using simple forms. And again, like heavy in the masonry, the brick, CMU. But the entry, I think, is clearly defined and pretty grand, while also being heavily transparent. So this one was just more in the character, just us getting a gauge on how traditional you want the form to be versus how modern. In this particular one, I think B was very heavily favored. So again, they're using pretty traditional materials with the stone, but also using these big, more modern forms that help define spaces, and so just generally more playful and more inviting, I think. So this slide was in relation to color. So you can see all of these examples are having a heavy use of different colors. The polling results on this one were very heavy in the use of color. I think it looks like we're at 93%. So we're also implementing color into these, and our, as you'll see in the exterior designs, that we're using the school colors as that color to emphasize how we can use color throughout the building, and hopefully we can get some responses from you on whether we're using too much or maybe you want more variety, and whether the school colors are the way to go, or if we could be more playful and use some more accent colors in addition to some of these school branding colors.
Now do you want to take over?
Yeah, now we can jump into the 3D models. So we'll look at Centennial High School first. And just to keep in mind, these are very conceptual. We're very early in the process, lots of time to change. So not final in any way, but we just want to get a gauge on if we're headed in the right direction and get your thoughts on that. So we encourage you to use the Vimeo chat, and we'll try to respond to any questions or comments you may have. But anything you have to offer would be very helpful. So this is Centennial. So I guess to zoom out here, just to kind of reorient ourselves, since we're so familiar with the plans at this point. But this will be to the entry point. So again, that big grand entry, like we were seeing in some of the polling images. So on the approach, doing some heavy branding, using some of the school colors as well as school logos and branding of what the school is. So here's the main entry. So hopefully this is a really well-defined space and it's a very clear entry point. So trying to bring up that scale to understand the importance of what that is, and having this real high transparency box here that relates back to the common space. Try to go slow here. I know there's a little bit of lag. So that'll have a real nice sense of safety, I think, as you're walking through. So you'll have a clear passage all the way through. You won't be walking in the entry and kind of understand, not knowing where you're headed. And so I think that is pretty strong there. You can see just in the general form that we're using pretty simple forms, staying heavy in the masonry. So this particular design is showing a lot of CMU. So where you're seeing these more natural colors, that is the CMU. And then we're using some areas to accent those with the color, again, of the metal panel. So metal panel above. So I guess relating back to the plan, so this again was that admin wing that we were talking about. So you have all these windows. Every admin room will have a window in it, so you have high visibility of the entry point. So as people are being dropped off, there'll be a lot of eyes on all that activity and making that feel like a safe environment for kids to start their day. And this upper area is kind of a nice, fun way to have the space off of the media center. So again, this real transparent area where kids can come outside and socialize, and also have access to the books that are going to be just right inside this area. So we'll move to the west here. So this is the classroom wing. So we have the lower level, the CMU, upper level metal panel. Typically in school design, we don't like to bring the metal panel down to the ground because there'd be more opportunity for the metal panel to get dented, or so we usually try to keep that up there. Keep moving around. So we're introducing some sun shading elements too. With this being on the east and west areas, you'll get a lot of sun coming in. So trying to treat that there with these horizontal elements, as you can see. Relating back to the floor plan, so this was the student hub. So again, kind of like the entry point, having this real high transparency zone that feels very inviting to the kids for this active space. And that transparency will go through to the east side of that student wing as well. I'll just zoom out and kind of let everyone take a look at how that is looking. So this is really our high volume here with the student area. So as we move to the north side, this will be the CTE spaces. So these are where you have your wood shops and culinary spaces. So we're showing some overhead doors that can open up to the outside, so you can really have a nice interaction of indoor, outdoor, and just kind of multifunctional spaces while using these types of doors. Again, with some pretty high transparency into those windows. So I think just really help activate those spaces. I'll zoom out here so everyone can get oriented again. And so this was the area that Eric says was no fun. So this is basically just the service area, the kitchen, the loading. So that area doesn't necessarily need windows like we see here. So that's kind of why we're seeing this as more of an opaque surface. And then moving on, so again, we see this high volume. So this high volume is where we're looking at the learning stairs. So that learning stair will start in the lower area here with the commons and move up. But again, keep a high transparency and really activate that space and be a welcoming area for all the kids. This lower volume here is the common space where all the kids will gather to eat their lunches, and offering some outdoor space to come outside and enjoy their lunch as well, with some covered canopy here that kind of lowers that scale for the kids. So not just coming outside and being open to the elements, but having this area to enjoy themselves here. This large volume that we're seeing here is the gym space. And what this material here is represented is a cow wall. So it's similar to glass, although it is a lot more diffused light. So you won't have glare issues within the gym. But it would still offer a lot of lighting and some skylights. And so this whole volume here is kind of where the media space is. And Amy, I didn't know if you had anything to add on how these media spaces relate to that outdoor area and kind of the activity that happens within this volume.
Yeah, so the idea is that the media center, we're actually calling information commons because I think at the two different high schools, the media center is used a bit differently. So there are within that space, the ability to do very structured learning as well as less structured activities and learning. And what we hear from students is that they often need just a quiet place to study. So there's a combination of large and small spaces, quiet and open active spaces to allow for that for various activities and various groupings and various student needs. But we also have that flexibility to allow for the two schools to operate their libraries a little bit differently. So the potential to have, for example, at Centennial, the planetarium component incorporated into the library is something we're looking into now as well, because that is we've heard is important to that program. And the library is less used there. So again, we're trying to design this so that, you know, even though there are similar spaces between the two schools, there may be some distinctions in how they're appointed and how they're used.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good point too. With the prototypes, they will feel a lot different as we start getting into the more of those specific things, and also again as we start getting more specific into the design of those interior spaces, that'll start really influencing what we're seeing here on the exterior. So again, this is a work in progress, and as we get farther into it, those interior spaces are going to start influencing what we're seeing here on the exterior. So keep moving around here on the north side. So this volume here is the auxiliary gym space. So we're starting to look at how window openings are going to work within these spaces and the functions of those spaces. So I think we do want a lot of natural light within the gym space. but at the same time, we're going to have this very outdoor active area. I think the gym, auxiliary gym space is not going to want to be disturbed by those activities. So we have windows that are up high, but still allow some of that lighting in. And then as we move around towards the east side, we can really open that back up and get that high level of transparency and daylighting that the space is going to want to have. And again, you'll see as we're moving around the building, we're bringing in some of those color ideas into that space, trying to show how all that can work. So relating this back to the plan, so this is where the locker rooms were, and so those spaces are obviously going to want to be very private. So we don't have any window openings going into those areas. So that's kind of why you're seeing this large block of masonry. So this is the wrestling area. So again, we want some transparency, but also just the function of the space. We're not going to want that glass coming down to the ground. So again, we're going to keep those windows up high in this space. And then you can see there's some doors that will come out from the locker rooms. You can come out to some of those play fields. I'll try to zoom out slow here. So you'll be in the locker room and the gym space, but then you'll have that direct access to these fields here. These volumes here are the vocal and band orchestra spaces. So we want to try to limit the amount of glazing for the acoustical reasons. You know, if we had too much windows in there, there'd be too much sound distortion. So we try to keep those windows limited, but also understanding that daylighting is very important to these learning spaces. Again, with some more access to that building. This large volume here that you're seeing is the auditorium space. So it's going to be one of our larger volumes. Again, trying to bring some of that color into that space. And just to reemphasize what Eric was talking about earlier with the step in the building, and we'll see how this relates to the east building as well. Let's see. So you can see where that step is happening. So basically, this whole area here is going to be stepped up. And when we move over to east, we'll see that this area is the actual volume that will be stepped up. Moving back to the classroom wings, just want to make sure that this is clear. It's maybe hard to see with the views that we were looking at earlier, but this space here is the art space. And the art space will have this nice outdoor area for some other activities to support those learning activities there. So it actually has an outdoor balcony space that is open to sky. You can kind of see how that's working. So from the facade, it kind of looks like it's all one space, but it actually does step back and has a nice outdoor area for those students. Zoom out real quick, just so we get an overview of how that's all looking and relating to each other. Again, please write any comments in the Vimeo chat, and we'll try to get those answered for you. I think we can jump over to east now. So now that we're seeing east, you'll see that there's some similarities in the buildings. Again, it's very much an early concept, work in progress, and we'll start to make these designs unique to themselves. But you'll see the big difference that we're showing in this particular option is this center commons admin area and how those entries are very different from each other. So you're not going to show up at Centennial and think you're at East, and vice versa. So they have very distinct, different architectural features. So in this element here, you can see that we're going with a slope roof, but again, relating to some of those volumes. And I think that this was a nice strategy for this particular design, since we do have that step. Let me kind of show you how that's working. So So you can see, as Eric was describing, that we have this real large step after we go through the common space into the student space. So this has jumped up about an entire level, or about 15 feet. And so how the volumes are relating to each other from Centennial to East are very different. I think in that they also make them feel very unique to each other. But you'll see that we're using some similar strategies. So I'll try to go around slower on this one, but also you'll see similarities in how we're trying to use some of the school's colors for the branding of the building. We still have that outdoor art space as we see here. I'll zoom in there. So those spaces are still relating to each other. Again, we're using that masonry on that lower level with the metal panel above to bring in some of that more modern form to it. So you can see how the slope is quite a bit higher here. So you're actually entering from the west parking lot. You'll be entering at level 2 of the student wing. So it's a little bit different in how those spaces relate to each other. I'll turn this off for now. Kind of heavy in that brand color. And areas like this, in the CTE areas, those obviously will start to feel really unique to each other since the programs do different from East to Centennial. So those differences in use will have a large impact on how they are treated on the exterior as well. So as we move back to that common space, again, just a high volume, heavy transparency space. Same with the learning stair. So the learning stair will be seen end up here and open up to that media area. Again, with that service space here. Again, the auxiliary space here, auxiliary gym. Same cow wall treatment of the gym, which is generally a good strategy for gyms. Kind of the more cow wall, the better, just because gyms do need a lot of natural lighting. So if we can treat it as much like this and avoid skylights, that's what we attempt to do. Turn back this on the site. So again, even though these are prototypes, it's our goal to make these still feel like very unique to themselves. And we'll continue to develop these. We're very early on, so we'll keep pushing this, and hopefully we have some comments from you that we can address and keep moving forward with the design. Thanks, Dan.
Well, while he's panning around and letting you look at it more, I think that's what we've got to show you. Hopefully, you feel like we've made a lot of progress in the last month. I think it feels like we have gone pretty far. Got a long way to go still, but hopefully you guys feel like we're on the right track. feel free to type in some more questions on the chat and even comment, because we will take those away and use those as we continue to develop these schools. Our next meeting is, I don't want to get this wrong, is our community forum will be on August 12th. So we have a few months. That'll be in the middle of design development. And so we'll have progressed the interiors of these buildings quite a bit and massaged the exterior quite a bit. And we'll work with the contractor to make sure we're on budget. Amy, do you guys have anything else to add?
Either Amy?
Either Amy.
Looks great, guys. It's so fun to watch the planning come to life and the design. I'm really, I hope everybody's pleased because it looks terrific to me.
Yeah, come a long way from a few blocks and a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
Yep, I think it's really coming along great, and I think we've worked hard on working with the existing sites and the way they are, and I think we were coming up with some good solutions.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think call it a night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.